Hello! We're Doug and Candie Langdale, Emmy-winning animation writer-producers. If you're an animation fan, you've probably seen our work. Maya and the Three, Book of Life, Samurai Rabbit, Scooby-Doo, Ninja Turtles, Dave the Barbarian, The Weekenders, and so much more.
And now we're here to talk about the world of animation, from the blood, sweat, and tears of development to the glorious premieres, from Winsor McCay to Guillermo del Toro, from stop motion to computer graphics. We are your Cartoon Insiders. Hello, and welcome to Cartoon Insiders with Doug and Candie.
I'm Candie.
And I'm the Doug one.
Yeah, it's been a minute, Doug one.
It has.
We've been really busy.
We have.
But we finally edited and posted our conversation with David Dzoritz.
Yes.
Which people need to listen to that.
Yep.
He is one of those people who has their finger in every pie.
Yes.
But you maybe don't know who he is.
Yeah.
But he worked directly under George Lucas at ILM for 10 years. He's a CG guy,
Yep.
computer guy. He's a writer. He's a director.
One of the pioneers of pre-visualization for movies.
We worked on his show Zafari, which was the first animated show done completely in the Unreal Game Engine.
Yep.
I mean, he's the dude that knows the things.
Yes. If you haven't heard that one, go back and listen to it because
yes.
it's great.
Well, we just posted it.
But, by the time we get this one up.
That's true.
So today, in honor of the 25th anniversary of the Weekenders.
Yes. Well, we were approached by Nadia from the Weekenders Tumblr blog.
Yes.
And said, hey, is it okay if we ask some questions? So her people sent in some questions.
Yes. So these are compiled by Nadia Russo, and there are 52 questions here, and I will do my best to answer.
Well, some of them are sort of the same, so we will probably consolidate and such.
Yeah, there'll be some condensing.
Yeah. So because I was not involved with that show,
yes,
I'm going to be asking the questions of Doug.
Okay, you're the interviewer.
And Doug is going to answer the questions to the best of his ability.
Excellent.
All righty. Are you ready? Should we just jump right in?
Yeah, let's jump right in.
Okay. I'd be curious to know whether all of the main characters and their personalities were set from very early on, or whether a crucial part of anyone's characterization was added much later in development.
I mean, definitely the biggest change was we went all the way through having a pilot script written and recorded and presented with a very different version of Tish. And she was like the wacky crazy one who was sort of off kilter and didn't understand how the world works, and it did not work at all. And I wish I could remember who. There was a Disney executive at that who was there just to listen to that recording and give his thoughts. And I can't remember who it was. It was someone higher ranking who we didn't usually meet with, but he was great because he listened to it and he was like, "That doesn't work at all." And I was like, "Well, maybe if we." And he was like, "No, that doesn't work." And I was
Get rid of the crazy girl.
He just cut right to it, and I was like, "You know what? You're right. Let's fix it." So. Did some thinking, and I mean, to be blunt, all the characters are based on me, and I was one of those brainy kids who was in special programs and was in the advanced classes, and so that was a little bit of me there. I wasn't as much. I would say it wasn't as much part of my identity as it was for Tish, but that was definitely largely inspired by me. But Tino was totally me. And also Carver and Lore. So
when you're a writer, every character is a part of you.
Yeah.
That's just how it is.
And you might take some inspiration from people but...
Mm-hmm. Everyone's a little piece of you.
Yeah. Oh, and also, in the early development stages. By the way, if you can hear snoring in the background, that's once again our dog Klaus, our dog Klaus, our dag Klaus.
Dog Klaus. Klaus know me.
Yeah, who is having a nap in his little mini dog bed in our recording studio
/ closet,
which is our closet.
Yeah.
Carver. So this is a little weird. Carver was originally Egyptian. I think because I had a friend at the time who was Egyptian, and I was like, you don't see a lot of Egyptian characters. And there was Kareem El Saifi, who sadly died. Probably don't need to know that, but he was a great guy, and he was a guy I did improv with, super funny. He produced a couple of movies. He produced Lords of Dogtown. And
I've seen that.
Yeah, the skateboarding movie. And some other stuff. But anyway, so this got sad. So he was Egyptian, and then we were looking at various people, and I think I was doing a sketch show at the time. I was doing that sketch show with Brian Palermo, the Dog and Brain show, and I met Phil Lamar, like, backstage, because we were doing the show at the Groundlings Theater, even though I was not a groundling. And Phil was there, and I was like, this guy's super funny, and, I believe he was on Mad TV already at that time, and so I knew who he was. I was like, he should be Carver. And then we were like, well, let's make Carver black. We've, there's a black guy doing it. We don't have any black characters among the main characters. That would make sense, so let's do that. So for all the people who asked if he was named after George Washington Carver, no, because he got that name while he was still an Egyptian guy.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I remember Phil told me at the time that he was playing something like 4 different characters in cartoons who had first names ending in and had standing dreads. He was like, for some reason, everyone names them Carter, Hunter, Carver, all these kind of names, and they have the same hairstyle. And I was like,
Didn't we see him 10 or 12 years ago in the live Pee-wee's Playhouse? Was he Cowboy Curtis?
He was Cowboy Curtis in the live version, yeah.
That was great. Exciting.
Everyone on the show was super great, so this is going to be a lot of superlatives from me. But, Phil was fantastic. And at the beginning, we pitched him up a little bit because he wasn't used to doing kid voices. But then after a while, like, he would come in to do ADR, and he would just match what he was doing because he would hear it. And it was like, well, if you can do that, why don't you just do that, and then we won't pitch it up anymore. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So not everyone's personality was set from the beginning.
No.
Okay. Next question. The Weekenders was my childhood. One of my favorite shows. Are the members of the main cast based on people from your life / people you grew up with?
Again, they're kind of all me, but there were some, I know there was a little bit of thinking about friends I had and experiences I'd had. So certainly there were elements in there, but I honestly can't say that any of the main characters were specifically based on anyone. Just
sort of an amalgamation.
Yes.
And you lived alone with your mom.
I did.
So that was...
So, so Tino was the obvious me character. He's the only child of a single parent. So that, and the show was set in Bahia Bay, which was, I thought, kind of obviously San Diego, but apparently it wasn't obvious to everyone.
Oh, there were some people who thought it was like New Jersey, right?
Yeah. Well, people on the East Coast tended to think it was on the East Coast, and on the West Coast thought it was on the West Coast.
Well, that's good.
That's good.
Yeah.
But, so, the whole situation was based on my childhood, but the characters weren't very specifically. But Tino's situation was very much based on my situation.
Right.
And also, I lived in a little craftsman bungalow like Tino did. So.
Alrighty. How did you get Kath Soucie for the role of Tish? She was my favorite. Does the pizza place get sued constantly to the point where they keep selling it and an injury occurs and they end up selling it in the next week as something bad keeps happening?
First off, I feel Kath was actually playing Tish in the earlier incarnation when she was like the crazy one.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and like, if anything, it was even more in her wheelhouse to do the smart girl character.
Mm-hmm.
So she was always, she might have been the first person we cast.
Mm-hmm.
So she was always someone we were looking at. And I mean, at the time, she was in a ton of stuff and super busy, but it wasn't like it was really hard to get people.
You just sort of call their agent and they
you
come
put
do it if they want to.
I mean, we did generally cast recordings, at least the main cast, almost
Mm-hmm.
all the time back then. So we would have to find like, a morning or afternoon every week when everyone was available. So
Mm-hmm.
that could be a little tricky, but it wasn't difficult to get someone just because they're busy. It was difficult sometimes to get name people, but we didn't do a lot of celebrity casting on the show.
Yeah. And the pizza place?
The pizza place. I think in the first script we called it something pizza, and I was like, I'm not really satisfied with that. And we kept coming up with different suggestions, and it was like, what the hell? Let's just have it change every week. So it was a different pizza place every week, just because I could not make up my mind on what I wanted it to be.
So no one got sued or maimed or anything?
Not as far as I know.
Nothing going on behind the scenes?
No.
Well, that's good.
And actually, it originally, in early development, it was a tea house.
Mm-hmm.
And they were hanging out at this tea house all the time. And someone at Disney was like, kids don't hang out at tea houses. They don't drink tea. This is a weird thing. Why don't you just do pizza? Ninja Turtles. Everybody likes pizza. And I was like, pizza, that's fine. Whatever.
Oh, yeah.
So, but it was inspired, originally by a place called, I think it was Sydney's Coffee House. It was a tea and coffee place down in San Diego.
And did you hang out there?
Yeah. In high school, though, not in middle school.
Okay. All righty then. Did you hang out at a pizza place in middle school?
I did not.
Okay.
No. I mean, I'm sure I went to Shakey's or something sometimes, but
yeah. Is there a favorite character that you enjoyed while making this show? If so, why?
I was thinking about this earlier, and every time I settled on a favorite character, I would be like, oh, but like Tino should be my favorite character because he was the most overtly me character.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, but Carver was kind of my favorite. Like, he was so fun to write. And then I was like, I don't know, Laura was kind of my favorite because she didn't have as much like baggage as the other characters. She could just kind of say what she was thinking. And then Tish sometimes feels like my favorite because that whole like sort of too smart for your own good thing I really identified with. That sounds a little egotistical.
But I mean, it's not.
Yeah.
No. Doug was given an IQ test as a child. His dad worked at MIT, had him take an IQ test, and it maxed out at 165. It was only accurate up to 165. Got a 165 on his IQ test, and he has spent his whole life trying to convince people that he's dumb. So to hear you, it's a fact, to hear you acknowledge that you're smart is actually kind of refreshing.
It feels weird to say it, but yeah.
So,
yeah.
Shh, don't tell anyone. Doug's smart.
I have a reputation to uphold.
Okay. Laura's mother got the short end of the stick when it came to the kids' parents. Would there have been any plans to develop her more in relation to her children and her husband?
I wouldn't say that we had plans, but that is definitely true. It sort of felt like because Laura had so many brothers, her mom must have just been, I don't know, laying down in a dark room with a cold compress over her eyes. She must have been exhausted because I'm not sure did we ever even see her? I don't know. Laura's parents were the least prominent parents in the show. And part of that was just because sort of the whole joke was you'd go to Laura's house and there'd just be all these boys running around screaming.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the focus of it. But yeah, I mean, eventually, if we had done infinity episodes, we definitely eventually would have gotten around to it.
It's so hard when you are developing a show because you can either have no backstory or no side stories at all. Or you can hint at things that add a little depth, but there's never time to develop them. And then if you do, kids aren't really going to want to watch a show about somebody's mom.
Yeah.
So you don't really get to do that.
It's interesting because one of the things that this show was noted for at its time is it was one of the few kids cartoons where the adults were not universally a bunch of bozos.
Mm-hmm.
So we acknowledged that sometimes adults had something useful to say and sometimes understood what was going on. So that the adults were presented more positively than in most kids shows.
Yeah. What inspired the Jennifer Love Hewitt gag from My Punky Valentine?
As I recall, I thought it would be funny in one episode because we always had the direct address where the characters would talk to the audience. Usually Tino would talk to the audience at usually beginning and end of the episode. He'd kind of wrap it up at the end. He'd say later days. And I just, at some point I thought, it would be funny if we had, I think what I said was it'd be funny if we got someone like Jennifer Love Hewitt and had her just randomly standing there and got her involved in the end of the thing. Because it's literally, they're discussing something and Tino's talking to Carver about something, and then Tino just turns and goes, I don't know, what do you think, Jennifer Love Hewitt? And you widen out and Jennifer Love Hewitt is there and she says something. Yeah.
That's like what happens.
And then, so what happened, if I remember correctly, is that Jamie Thomason, who was the head of casting and stuff, I think he was friends with her, or at least he knew her.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, I can get her in to do this. Like, she'll come in and do it. And I was like, oh my God, that would be amazing. So we had her come in and, and then at the end, she was the one who said the later days that we usually ended the episodes with. Mm-hmm. And so she said later days. And then she just to us said, oh my God, I'm such a dork.
Did you leave that in?
And we were like, can we keep that? I don't think it was oh my God, but she did say dork, which at the time was not considered a 100% okay word for a kids cartoon.
Uh-huh.
But they allowed it in this case, and she gave permission because I thought it was super endearing and adorable. But we did check with her because she might have been like, no, I don't want to call myself a dork.
Right.
But yeah, so we did keep that in.
Oh, cute. Even though I loved Dave the Barbarian and watched Dave the Barbarian, I've only seen, I don't know, a handful of episodes of the Weekenders, so I'm not familiar with all of these.
Yeah.
Partially because it's really hard to watch, to get Doug to watch his old shows.
It is excruciating for me to watch my old shows because I still look at them and I see the animation mistakes that we didn't have time to fix, and I see the things that I wish I'd done differently, and I want to fix everything. I want to George Lucas everything. Mm-hmm. I want to go in and do the special edition.
Hire David Dzoritz.
I could hire David Dzoritz.
Was Mrs. Duong, is that how it's pronounced?
I think so.
Okay. Perpetually pregnant or just allergic to gluten?
She was perpetually pregnant.
Was she?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a little bit of a joke on how, the show was on for 4 years or something like that, and the characters were 12 the whole time. And it's like, if they're eternally 12,
she can be pregnant.
There's no reason she can't be eternally pregnant.
Right. Yeah. So I assume she had a big belly?
Yes.
Okay. Because there's different ways that could have gone.
She was a tall, thin lady with a big belly.
Okay. So she wasn't farting a lot.
No.
Okay. Just checking. Okay. My question is, how did you decide on the characters' names? When I first heard them back in the day, I thought they were strange.
The only answer I have for this, and I feel like I've done this on most shows, is I knew there were going to be 4 characters. I knew sort of who they were. Mm-hmm. And I just started saying names together. Mm-hmm. And eventually, at some point, I said Tino, Carver, Laura, and Tish. And I was like, oh, that sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know why. Like, they weren't given names for clear, specific reasons. It was just like I kept saying stuff until some combination sounded good.
You are really good at naming things.
Thank you.
Just anything in general.
As I often say, I don't understand why more people don't consult me about the
Yeah,
names
they
of
really
things.
should. You should be a professional namer of things.
They should call me up anytime they're going to name something.
Mm-hmm.
In particular, prescription drugs.
Yeah.
I think I'd be good at.
I think you would be too.
Barasnatin.
Barasmatin.
That sounds like a drug.
Sure. Yeah.
One of the things was there was, so Laura's last name was McQuarrie, and there was Laura McCreary working at Disney at the time. And I knew that, but I didn't put it together in my head until later when everyone was assuming that she was the inspiration for that name. And I was like, no, I just like the way Laura McQuarrie sounded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Any reason why Chum Bucket? Was that the first choice? Were there other names in the drafts? Thank you for joining us.
That was, they were supposed to be Limp Bizkit. So that's why it was the slightly off spelling.
Is this a band?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a band.
Did this predate SpongeBob?
Boy, I don't think so.
But the episodes with the little plankton guy, didn't he have a restaurant called the Chum Bucket?
Yeah, we were writing it before.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if it aired before. Yeah,
okay.
I think that was
also,
called the Chum
I don't
Bucket.
know if Plankton was even in the early episodes. I don't remember.
I'm not sure. I feel like they.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
So you had no.
I didn't know about that
Okay.
definitely when I knew
All right.
it. I just, but it was literally the first thing that popped into my head.
And Chum Bucket was a band.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just like, we need a name for a band, something like Limp Bizkit, Chum Bucket. Okay, done. Next thing.
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
That's how much thought went into it. And they had a song called Chicken Eat the Eggs.
Uh-huh.
And that was because I had been in Hawaii making myself egg whites.
Uh-huh.
And there were a bunch of stray cats in the area, and one of them had no teeth. And I was like, oh, I should cook the yolks and put them out for that cat with no teeth. So I did that, and the cat didn't finish them. And I looked at later, and one of the many stray chickens in Hawaii was out there eating the egg yolks. And I was like,
yeah.
Dude.
They will do that.
Don't tell him.
Yeah.
So that was where Chicken Eat the Eggs came from.
When I had cockatiels, that was one of the things you had to watch out for if, like, one of the eggs broke. And because my girl cockatiel had eggs, laid eggs. If one of the eggs break, you can't let them, like, clean it up because they'll get a taste for eggs and then they'll, like, eat all of their eggs.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a thing.
So you didn't make tiny omelets?
No, those are my pets. That would be weird. I wonder if they're good.
Klaus, can you provide us with omelets in some way?
I don't want one of his omelets.
No.
I don't want one of his omelets.
No.
Okay. Next question. Would we have seen any of Tino's grandparents on either his mother's side or his father's side? I'm interested in what kind of parents Miss Tonatini might have had to make her such a good mother to Tino.
I don't recall ever having any plans about that, but I'm sure if the show had gone on long enough, we would have done that at some point. I feel like, let's see, we saw Laura's grandmother and we saw Tish's grandfather in episodes. That might have been it. I don't remember any of Carver's grandparents, so I guess those were the only ones we did. That was Klaus.
He's making breakfast.
Yes.
If you had a chance to make more episodes or even an outright continuation, would you develop Laura's brothers further as their own individual characters, reveal the originating country of Tish's family, take the opportunity to let the kids grow up? Sorry, that was a weird read. Do you want me to do that again?
No. I mean, we've talked about that. Like, if there were a new show, would it be like the characters are adults now and it's about their kids, or would it just be a continuation? And there's something to be said for both of those.
Mm-hmm.
The brothers, I think we definitely would, like, especially if we were doing a like where are they now kind of thing. I think you would want to see. There's so many brothers. I can't even remember how many we designed. It's like 8 or 10.
Mm-hmm.
But like Laura didn't know how many brothers she had. Like she said at one point that someone asked, and she's like, I don't know. You can't count them. They're always running around.
Oh,
So
gosh.
it would have been. I think it would have been interesting to see like really quickly like what each and every one of them is doing as an adult, because they were literally doing nothing but screaming, running around, fighting, shooting each other with rubber darts, that kind of thing.
Could do a like series finale of 6 Feet Under and just show everyone's death.
There you go.
That would be fun.
Follow them right to the end of their lives.
Yeah, why not? What school subjects are the 4 kids? Wait a minute. I'm sorry, we skipped over a little bit of this.
Oh yeah, the originating country of Tish's family.
Yes.
Their country of origin. It was never said on the show, but it was a made-up country called Foreignlandia.
Okay.
So it was a made-up tiny country, and part of that was because at the beginning it was like extra super ambiguous where they were from. And then someone pointed out that Katsifrakis is a Greek name, and I was like, oh, I picked it because the first time I heard it, I was like, is that Eastern European? Is it Japanese? I have no idea. And then, like, now I look at it, I'm like, obviously that's Greek.
Mm-hmm.
But so at some point we decided that they were near Macedonia, but we never said it on the show.
Okay. And take the opportunity to let the kids grow up.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it's like if there were a new version of the show, like, yeah, I think either you would have the kids from the show be adults now and we follow their kids, or you would be like, let's do early 2000s nostalgia and just continue the show from where it was, or like they're in high school now or something like
right.
I think there would be an element of interest to setting it in that era, which is now nostalgic. But also seeing where they are today, I think would be interesting. So I don't know.
Okay, what school subjects are the 4 kids best at?
I was looking these questions over, and that's an interesting one because like there's an obvious answer for Lore because she was super good at PE. She was good at any kind of sports, physical stuff, and Tish was obviously going to be good at the brainy subjects.
STEM.
Yeah, all the STEM stuff. And it was less obvious with the others, but I mean, one of the things about the show was I had been reading one of Howard Gardner's books, and he's the guy who came up with the theory of multiple intelligences, and his whole thing was that people can be there's not one intelligence. You're not intelligent in just one way. There's physical intelligence, there's emotional intelligence, there's different kinds. And they're all valuable and they're all good and they should all be encouraged. So, the thinking was that Lore has physical intelligence and Tino has a little more emotional intelligence, and, we were playing with that. And Howard Gardner's stuff was very popular with educational TV at the time because it kind of opened up the possibilities for what educational TV could be, because you could play to emotional issues and relationship issues and things and do what they called pro-social education and not have to teach facts, which television is the worst medium for getting across facts. Like memorizing things does not happen well on TV. So there, there was always that thinking that they were all super smart in different ways. But I would imagine Tino probably would have excelled at English, and probably Carver too. And Carver would have been a really good art student.
Which of the 4 would be most likely to be a parent? Hopefully not during the show.
No. I don't know. I kind of see Carver as the most obvious parent. I don't know why.
He seems like he'd be a good dad.
Yeah. But they seemed like I mean, they would all, like, more likely than not be parents someday. Tish was kind of always the least advanced in terms of being interested in relationships.
Which one of them had a lot of brothers? Because she
Lore.
might not ever want to have kids.
Yeah. No, that would be the ironic thing would be if she was the first one to have kids.
Oh.
But so I feel like Tish might have been a little later bloomer in the having kids department than the others. But
Because she was focused on her studies.
yeah, and she was a little bit less. She seemed like she would be less interested in romantic relationships, or at least she would be interested in them a little later in life than the others. Like she was a little behind the curve on that.
Gotcha. Was Carver intended to be LGBTQ? I remember there were a couple jokes about him secretly liking to cross-dress. Could Carver be a trans girl or maybe a future drag queen?
Carver was definitely the probably LGBTQ character. We were never overt about it, and I think Carver was 12. He didn't really know. He was sort of just figuring stuff out. But I always assumed that he would grow up to be gay or bi. And we did do one or two cross-dressing jokes, but I always felt like those were more about, he was super into fashion, and I think he just liked fashion.
He was exploring different looks.
I didn't think that was about him. I didn't think he was cross-dressing. I think he was just dressing up.
He was just being fabulous.
Yeah. That said, he would be an amazing drag queen.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to say plenty of 12-year-olds know what their sexuality is.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. But I also think there are a lot of 12-year-olds who are figuring it out.
Yeah,
and
exploring.
And he was one who was figuring it out, I think. Also, I mean,
you can't overtly say anything.
Well, I mean, I feel like almost every cartoon at that time had a character who everyone on the show knew was gay. Like that was just kind of a thing. Because you couldn't have gay characters, but like there were gay people working on the shows. There,
Right.
I mean, it was the world then,
right.
Just as it is now. There are gay people around, so it seemed, you would sort of have it in your head that this is the character who was gay, but you'd never really say anything about it. And I think Carver's obsession with shoes, I think, came across to people as like kind of a hint that he might be gay.
But there are plenty of straight men who are into fashion.
Which is funny because I like shoes a lot. So.
Yeah, when we met, you had more shoes than I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I always thought it was funny that people interpreted that specific thing that way.
I think it's just stereotype that women are into. I mean, I'm into shoes, but I mean, only women are into shoes as a stereotype.
Well, and one of the things about the show was that none of the characters conformed to the gender stereotypes. So they were all a little bit off from that.
Yeah.
Because like I never felt like I conformed to gender stereotypes. So why would I write characters who did?
Right.
I mean, like Tino, like wasn't into sports, didn't get sports at all. None of them were dead on what you expect for their gender.
Gotcha. What are the main characters' birthdays?
I have no idea.
Okay.
That was not something I ever tried to sort out.
Well, what were their astrological signs?
I don't know. I think the closest we ever got was Tish turned 12 and a half. We knew that she turned 12 and a half in one episode. So, but since we didn't ever know what time of year it was.
Right.
Don't know.
Is Tish short for Patricia or Letitia or Morticia? Or...
short for Petrotishkovna.
Okay. I'm glad I asked.
So, Petrotishkovna Katsufrakis.
Okay. Are Tino and Lore a thing?
Nope.
No?
No. In the show, I mean, one of the things I liked about it was that there were boy characters and girl characters who were friends, and there was never any romantic thing between any of them directly.
You didn't have to match them up.
No. There was an episode where Carver thought that Lore had a crush on him. That was, I think that was the closest we got. But, I mean, there was a lot of discussion at the time about, like, the characters are 12. Are they going to have, like, are they going to date? Are they going to have boyfriends and girlfriends? Are they going to kiss? Are they going to hold hands? Because they did on some shows at that time. And I was like, no dating, no kissing. I don't care if 12-year-olds are doing that. They're not doing that on this show.
When I was 12, I was drawing pictures of unicorns.
Yeah. I was not. None of this stuff was going on with me or any of my friends as far as I knew when I was 12. And then, like, our kids weren't doing any of that stuff when they were 12. Mm-mm. So I know it goes on, but I wasn't interested in doing that on the show. So in my mind, there was never any romance between the main characters. They did occasionally, they had crushes on other people because you do when you're 12, but they weren't like dating.
Right. Well, people develop differently at different paces.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Alrighty then. Do you think Tino's mom will ever stop cooking those weird foods, and will the ever failing pizzeria hangout joint ever get any more successfully done once they finally find the right theme of their place?
I have to say no and no. Tino's mom is definitely going to continue to make the weird food, as my mother did when I was a kid. I mean, I thought it was weird. I don't know. Falafel in the 70s was kind of weird. She was doing
the health food thing.
Yeah, she was doing 70s health food, which now we call food. For the most part, it wasn't crazy. And the pizza I mean, I just assume the guy who runs the pizza place is incapable of making up his mind about a theme, so it's never gonna.
If I had a pizza place, I think it would be fun to do different themes.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to have to pick one.
Yeah, and it was like, I mean, it was the same room and the same front. He would just dress it up differently, so it wasn't like he wasn't sinking a whole lot of money into it.
He was just going down to Party City, maybe.
That's kind of what it felt like. Okay. Yeah. Wow,
Klaus.
That was quite a snore, Klaus.
Well timed too, though. Yeah. What were some concepts that didn't make it into the show?
I mean, I mentioned the tea house. Honestly, I'm not sure I can. Well, I mentioned the tea house and I mentioned Tish's original character, but beyond that, and Carver being Egyptian, I can't really remember.
It's sort of like, what were you specifically doing 25 years ago?
Exactly. It's like the stuff that didn't make it into the show. Like, there were not things that I, desperately wanted in the show that they wouldn't let me do. There were some things that I thought of putting in that they were like, no, like the tea house, but it wasn't a big deal. I was like, all right, I'll do something else. I mean, so there wasn't anything that I, desperately wanted to put in the show and wasn't allowed to, which would make me remember it now. There were just, ideas that we had that didn't get in there, and I don't really remember them.
Yeah, that's the thing. When you're making a show, you have a million ideas, and there's no way to fit them all into the show.
Yep.
And so you pick some.
Yep.
I remember on Samurai Rabbit, there were going to be flying squirrels.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And our supervising producer didn't like the idea of that, and I was just like, fine, let's do moles then. And then it was moles.
Yeah.
I loved the movie The Mole People when I was a kid, so I try to put moles in things.
Also, we had the bats at that point, and it was like, do we need 2 flying mammals?
I don't know. Those flying squirrels were pretty cute.
They were really awesome.
Yeah. So
we also had the they were like storks on bikes or something.
There were
cranes on bikes.
Cranes on bikes, and then there were these deer businessmen.
Yeah.
So but anyway, this isn't a Samurai Rabbit. Anyway,
no.
But there's a million ideas you have,
but those ideas
literally
we might not remember in 20 years.
That's true. Let's get them out now. I'm curious about a small. Oh, this is production related questions now.
Okay.
This last one started that. Okay. I'm curious about a small change that occurred in the DVD release. It's the episode where Carver and Tino fight over a pool game. Tino reads a newspaper that says aliens side with Carver, while the aired version said White House sides with Carver, declares war on Tino. What happened there?
That's a good question. I don't remember. This being a thing.
You had no involvement with the DVD release.
No, and I mean, in fact, it's almost a stretch to call it a DVD release. I mean, there was a DVD on demand that you could get for a while if you were in the Disney Club or something.
Yeah. But like you didn't even know the DVDs
No.
were coming out. You just found out about them one day. Disney doesn't actually tell you anything.
Yeah.
So
I do have, like reading this question, feel like I have a vague recollection that we did something and then we changed it with this headline. Like somebody didn't like the White House declaring war on Tino, and we changed it, but I might be making that up.
Yeah.
So it's possible that we had two versions, like that there was a version that got changed for a later air date or something, and that's the one that wound up in the DVD. I don't know.
Okay. It could be just somebody didn't like it.
Yeah.
Getting politics involved.
Yeah, and with all the text stuff, we would do textless versions for international, and they would put their own text in. So, like, if there was ever a text thing someone didn't like, that was super easy to change because they could just drop in.
Nowadays, they don't even let us put text in. Usually.
It really depends on the show, but yeah usually. Especially in a CG show, it's hard to do it textless.
Oh, yeah. Did you ever receive a weird note from executives like the one about adding a monkey to an episode?
Well, this is referencing the episode that had Tish's grandfather in it, and someone must have heard me tell this story, but there was a point where we were working on the episode, and I was meeting with the execs, and they felt like it wasn't funny enough, and they said, you know what, you should add a monkey. And I laughed and laughed, and they laughed, and we all laughed at what a stupid idea that was.
So you thought?
And then at the end, they were like, but seriously, we actually want you to add a monkey. And I was like, okay. So we gave the grandfather character a monkey, and we had it voiced by Robbie Rist, who played Cousin Oliver in the Brady Bunch, who was a character who existed because of a kind of a dumb note.
From an executive.
So I thought it would be funny. I called Robbie and I was like, I think it'd be funny if you voiced this monkey. And he's like, I don't really do animal voices. And I was like, I don't care. And then he did a great job, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, and the monkey's name was Oliver.
Oh.
So it was kind of an inside joke.
That's funny.
And honestly, the grandfather having a monkey worked out really well.
Yeah.
So wasn't such a dumb note.
The other Oliver added to the show was Danny Cooksey was at what they do is when the cute kid in the show grows up and they get older and they're not cute anymore, the studios want to add another cute kid to the show. So Cousin Oliver got added to the Brady Bunch. Sam got added to Different Strokes after Gary Coleman got older and wasn't as cute anymore.
Yeah.
So Danny Cooksey played Sam. So he grew up to be the voice of Dave the Barbarian. Yeah. So he was also kind of a Cousin Oliver.
It's funny. The kids grow up. They're not cute enough. They bring in a new kid, and then that kid grows up to be an amazing voice actor.
There you go.
I don't know why that happens, but Danny Cooksey and Robbie Rist both great.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I don't remember any other notes.
No, that was the big one.
I remember that story because we were all laughing about it because the execs were also like, yeah, we know it's stupid.
Okay. I'd love to know more about the writing and storyboard process. Was it a script-driven show? Would love to read a script if there are any left still.
It was a script-driven show, and I didn't save scripts from that era. I don't have anything. Not even sure what format they would be in at this point.
Would they be on a floppy disk?
They might be on a floppy disk. I'm not sure. But so unfortunately, I don't have any.
Yeah. So every show you do is script driven because you're a writer.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I've done, like on El Tigre, we did one board driven episode. And I love board-driven shows, and a lot of board-driven shows do have writers on them. I would love to write on a board-driven show. I think that's super cool. But this was definitely a script-driven show, and I mean all the Disney, the sort of animated sitcom shows that Disney was doing at the time were all script-driven. So, but it was it was also a time when everyone was like in an office together. So like you'd write a script and then you'd go talk to the board artists about it and like work stuff out. And so there was a lot of back and forth, and they could add stuff, and it was collaborative.
That's nice back in the day when everyone was in the same area
Yeah.
together and not someone in another country or
Yep.
someone you never meet in person. Or, yeah. Back in the day,
Yep.
back when all of the voice actors recorded in the same room together.
Yeah.
Okay. Were any of the storylines inspired by any of the staff's lives?
This is a good question. The answer is definitely yes. And unfortunately, I don't remember specifics,
Mm-hmm.
except for the stuff that came from my life, which is easy to remember. But I mean, like there was an episode with the, I think they called it the crevasse.
Mm-hmm.
Like, was it Tina? One of the characters, I think it was Tina, remembered like when they were younger, there was this like amazing, like magical, like little nature place that they would go to, and he wanted to find it again, and everyone was like, "That's you're misremembering. That's not a real thing. You're never going to find it. It's not true." And that was based on there was a canyon behind my elementary school, and we used to go down and play down there, and it was just like it was a super neat place. It was like this sandstone. It was like just a crack in the earth that was about maybe 6 or 8 feet wide, and you could go down in there and do stuff. And there were palm trees, and it was kind of neat. And then the whole thing in the Weekenders episode was at the end, they're like, yeah, I guess it wasn't, I guess it's just, memory plays tricks on you. It wasn't that great. And then like they give up on looking for it, and you sort of pan over.
Oh, no.
And they right around the corner, there's this like amazing place.
Do you think you could find the crevasse today?
I definitely could. Yeah, I know exactly where it is.
Okay. What
if it's still there,
did you
I don't
go
know.
To?
If an earthquake didn't destroy
Oh,
it.
no.
I went to Ulysses S. Grant Elementary School in San Diego.
Okay.
Yeah. And I lived across the street from the elementary school, which was not an aspect that we ever got to use on this show. But of course, that was elementary. They're in middle school and Weekenders.
Yes. Okay. What are the origins? Did I say origins?
I think you did, yeah.
What are the origins of some of the catchphrases like later days and hey yowza?
The high school that I went to in San Diego was a little surfery, and people would say later days. That was a thing that people said. So that was where that came from.
Point Loma High School.
Point Loma High School. I don't remember hey yowza, but that sounds like something that I would put in because it sounds like a dumb catchphrase. Hey yowza. But yeah, later days came from my high school.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
and that was on. We had hats made for the show, and on the back they said later days, which I thought was cute.
Yeah. What was it like trying to match a TV show's production schedule with the amount of recurring gags and details the show was known for? Consistent wardrobe changes, alternating pizza themes, etc.
Candie, as you well know, it's always a nightmare keeping up with a TV schedule and having to. I mean, we did the different clothing designs like at the beginning of the season, and then we did some more, I think, going into maybe it was the second season. But we started off with they had like 5 different outfits, and you could mix and match some of the like pants and shirts and stuff. So they'd have different stuff. So that wasn't like a huge ongoing production issue. The pizza place thing was probably started to annoy some of the background and prop designers after a while. But it was like, come on, it's the same space. We're just dressing it up differently. So it wasn't that much trouble. But the clothing thing was definitely weird, and people weren't used to having the different outfits. So.
Somewhere out there is a prop and background designer who just hates your guts.
It's possible. No, our main background designer, Tom Workington, was so gung-ho, he drove down to San Diego early in the process and like went down and took pictures of buildings, took pictures of houses, just went and looked at stuff for inspiration.
Wow.
Like I gave him the address of the house that I lived in down there to look at for Tino's house. Tina's house doesn't look like the house that I lived in, but it's the same style of house. It's a craftsman. So he was like super gung-ho about everything. So he definitely wouldn't have complained. But I don't know. There are people who might have. Nobody did. Nobody said anything to me, at least.
The Weekenders always had very strong and distinct character voices, especially while also being realistically written kids. What's the most important thing to capture that voice?
I made a decision early on that the characters were going to speak pretty much like adults. Like my thinking was, if you're going to write kids, like write adults who have different interests, responsibilities, and resources.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because, and in fact, like when they would do focus testing and they would ask the kids in the focus groups if the kids on the show sounded like them and their friends, they would almost invariably say yes. Because I always think the thing where you try to like dumb down kids' dialogue is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Or like try to make it super slangy or
Right.
whatever. It's
Super
just like,
cool.
oh
Yeah.
no, I hate that. So
Yeah, people don't talk like that.
and I grew up reading Peanuts, which, and I think there's a question later that this will come up again, but like Peanuts was a big inspiration for this. And the characters were much younger in that, and they always just sounded like adults to me, and I totally related to that as a kid. That made perfect sense to me. So that was a big thing. And then, of course, there's the aspect of matching the characterization to the vocal performance, and the main thing there is you could get the actors in early and work with them, and like you can incorporate things that the actors bring to it into, like someone will ad-lib something and then you incorporate it into later scripts. I mean, it should be an organic process where everyone works together to make the character voice as written match with the character voice as spoken.
And so Kath Soucie was Tish.
Yeah.
Greta Lyle
was Lore.
Phil Lamar was Carver, and Jason Marston was Tino.
Yes. And they were all fantastic. I think Gray, I think that was one of her first, maybe even her first lead role. And now she's in everything now. So, but yeah, she was great. I always loved that voice. I thought it was interesting and a little understated. Like it wasn't a super cartoony voice. She just had she sounded a little bit congested, and then it was all acting. It wasn't vocal trickery.
Right.
Yeah, no, I always really liked that.
The art style is very memorable and unique, even for the time period. Were there any particular inspirations behind it? And are they as all the creators envisioned when they started?
Here's where we get back to it. So Peanuts was a big inspiration for the show. And in fact, there was an early, I probably could have mentioned this earlier, in early stages of development, we were not going to have any adult characters. I was going to be sort of like Peanuts, where they were just off screen. And then at some point it was just like, it feels contrived, and these kids are a little older and they're interacting with, the world so much, it just felt like it would be weird. But it was something we were definitely thinking about, and we had done... we had various people take a crack at designing the characters. This guy, Teddy Newton, who's amazing, did a pass at the characters that I loved. And we kept, we'd show the characters around, and just nobody, nothing really clicked for anyone. And then there was a point where I was like, I feel like nothing ever really clicks. Like, you just keep designing and redesigning until you've run out of time, and then that's what you wind up going with. Because you always want it to you always want to look at it and go, yes, that's it. But you're never going to feel like that's it until you've been working with those characters for a while.
Right, that's true.
They're always going to feel like, I don't know.
It's hard to know when your painting is finished.
Yeah. But we had Steve Lyons came in, who wound up directing the show as well as designing the characters. And he came in and he was a director, so there was more that he could do. And I talked to him, I think, a little bit about Peanuts and stuff, and he did a pass at the characters. I think his first pass was pretty close to what we wound up with. And he turned it in, and the head of the department had them sitting on his desk and was sort of considering them, and the showrunners from another show came in to talk to him about something, and they looked at the drawings on his desk and they were like, oh, that's super cool. What is that? And he was like, this is what we're using. It was like he was just waiting for someone to say, that's neat.
Someone's got to tip it.
And then that was what we went with. And they didn't look like Peanuts characters, but you can kind of see how that was an element in it. And they were, we wanted them to be very simple. We didn't want to like overtax the production, like keep everything like kind of basic, and it really worked. And then Steve directed the whole show, so he knew how to work with those characters.
Very cool.
Yeah.
It's unusual for cartoon characters to have more than one outfit. What made you go the route of changing the characters' clothes each day, and how did you keep that from going off model or off budget?
I think right at the start, we would say like, the show would start with like what day it was. So we'd start with Friday, and then we'd go into that, and then we'd say Saturday and that, and Sunday and that. And like in the first episode, like we went to Saturday, and it was like, oh, it's super weird if they're wearing what they were just wearing. It just feels like we've called attention to the fact that it's another day, and it's like the morning of the next day, and it just felt so weird for them to be wearing the same clothes. So we were like, okay, let's take the designs we have and figure out like what the essence of each of them, what their personal style is, and come up with like 5 outfits like that. And we'll just rotate them around. And then I think we did another like 3 or 4 outfits in the second season or something. But it wasn't so much a problem keeping them on model, because they were almost geometric. They were pretty specific. It's like, this one is this color and it's got a line across here, and like they're very similar silhouettes. The only problem was every now and then you would be editing something and be like, we just need like a medium shot of Carver to go in here. Oh, we can pull one from this other episode. And then you'd be like, dang.
He's wearing a different shirt.
He's wearing a different shirt. And there were at least a couple of times where we pulled something from another episode and just recolored their shirt. So I'm pretty sure there are some where like you cut to Carver and then you cut to Tino and then you come back to Carver and he's got like a slightly different collar, but it's the right color,
right?
And you don't really notice. But it was that was the only thing that was kind of a pain, because most of that, or really all of that design work was front loaded, and it wasn't super difficult. It was like, this is the one who's going to be wearing this sort of lounge shirts, and this one's going to be wearing striped t-shirts, and
I feel like this question is answered by earlier questions. Love how you drew the kids. Seriously, though, where did the designs for Tino and his friends come from? Besides the designs, where did the kids' personalities come from? And how the heck did you get their voices to match them so well?
I think we've kind of covered all of that. I mean, the way we got their voices to match them so well is by having amazing actors, I think.
Yeah.
And, again, being flexible and collaborative, and I think it's super important, like, never to be 100% sure what the show is. Like, there's always the possibility that it's going to turn out to be a little bit different, and that's okay.
Yeah. So
you can't go into it being like super rigid about, it's got to be like this.
Absolutely.
You gotta be
because once other people start collaborating and you get the art and the voices and the music, it turns into something beyond what you envisioned. And if you try to control it into the picture in your head, you're really missing out on everyone else's contribution.
Yeah.
Which would be terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've seen people do that where they're very rigid about it, and it's just like you lose out on, I mean, it has to be a collaborative process, and you miss out on so much if you're not open.
For sure.
Yeah.
How did you get so good at creating the Weekenders? Did you practice?
I think this is as good a place as any to briefly tell the story of how I pitched the show, which was Disney had asked to see some shows, and I met with them, talked about what they might want, and we a couple of meetings, and then I went off and I came up with 2 or 3 shows that were very developed. And went in and pitched those shows, and I got through whatever the last one was, and they were like, what else you got? And I was like, oh no. And I had one piece of paper with me that just said kids on the weekend. And so I started talking about the kind of stuff I did on the weekend when I was a kid, like when I was in middle school, the sort of things I got up to with my friends and the kind of things that we did. And I started telling them just stuff from my childhood. And at some point they were like, we want to make that show. And I was like, what show are you talking about? I was just telling you about stuff I did down in San Diego. And they're like, no, that's the show. So they picked up this show that didn't even have a title. Someone's assistant or something like put together paperwork and said like, it was like a memo that went out, and in the memo they called the show The Weekenders. We have no idea who came up with that name. It just got typed into something somewhere, and as I recall, I think it was Michael Eisner who hated it. Mm-hmm. Someone hated that title and definitely wanted us to change it, and they were like, "It sounds like a British comedy from the 60s. It's like wrong. It's all wrong." And we were like, "Absolutely, we will change that." And then we just kept pitching other titles, and they were all bad. So the show just got made, and then we just never got around to changing it. But I have no idea who came up with that title.
He's still waiting for you to change it, Doug.
He is. I remember one of the titles was Whatever.
Okay.
So it could have been Disney's Whatever.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think you just answered this question. Was the show pitched to other networks before it landed with Disney's ABC?
No.
Because you were at Disney.
Yeah.
And they asked you to pitch some stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What were your favorite pizza places jokes?
I honestly don't remember. There were so many of them. I can't say that I have a favorite because I don't have a list of them in front of me. Yeah. So.
What are some pizza place names you didn't get a chance to use?
That's another one I don't really have an answer for. I'm sure if there was something that I really wanted to get in there and they said no, I might remember it now, but I don't recall there ever being anything that was shot down.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sure I wasn't about to try to pitch anything offensive, so.
Yeah. And I believe we answered this. What was the inspiration behind the show?
Yeah.
It was your life in San Diego when you were a kid.
Yeah.
Okay. Unsolved mysteries. What happened to Frances and why does she like pointy things?
I have a T-shirt that is Frances. And it says,
where did we buy that?
I like pointy things. Mm-hmm. Someone was selling it on one of the T-shirt
like
sites.
T-Public or something.
Yeah, something like that.
$6 tees.
Yeah. So that's the only, I think I actually have some official Weekenders T-shirts somewhere, but I love I like pointy things. I don't know. Something tragic must have happened to her, but she's always seemed very happy to me with her love of pointy things.
Did she become a knife salesman?
It's possible.
She works at Williams-Sonoma now.
Maybe she's a darts champion. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe she designs steeples.
Yeah. The world is her oyster.
Yes.
Okay. What is blue in the summer, brown in the winter, and smells like cheese?
Okay, I had to look this up, and it was hard to find it. But apparently, this is something that I stuck in an episode and forgot about.
Because it's hard to remember what you did 25 years ago.
Because it's hard to remember what you did 25 years ago.
And you can't make Doug watch old episodes.
No. And I don't remember, and I don't know if I wrote this or someone else on the show wrote it. I don't remember it, but I guarantee you we did not have an answer.
Okay.
I can absolutely guarantee you.
Because you're really good at writing riddles. I feel like if there was an answer, you would know.
Yeah. There is probably a mushroom that's blue in the summer, brown in the winter, and smells like cheese. So maybe it's that.
Maybe it's that.
I looked around online to see if anyone else had an answer, and I think someone said the moon. And I was like, No, but okay.
I just want to say, once a show is done and produced and out there on the TV, it belongs to the audience now. It is no longer the creator's show.
That's true.
It's your show now. You can decide.
Yeah. Absolutely. If there's anything that I'm saying about the show that hits you wrong or you disagree with it, you're right.
Just change it in your head. Yeah. It's fine.
Because, the whole thing I was saying about being flexible and open to change and all that, like the downside to that is you want to keep changing the show after it's done.
Right. And
because you're still open to change.
When you're a creator, there's a million different directions it can go in, and you change a lot of details, and the main thing that you care about is keeping the essence or the spirit of it going. The details don't matter as much.
Yeah.
And so they change. It's fluid.
You want to try to be consistent, but, you know.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, if a viewer wants it to be a certain way, then that's how it is.
Yes, if anyone has a good answer to what's blue in the summer, and brown in the winter and smells like cheese, then that's the right answer.
Yeah.
Because I don't know.
Because you come up with the show, there's the collaborative process of adding the art and the music and the voices. And then once it's produced, that collaborative process does not stop, because then the audience is also collaborating with the show.
Especially
like
when you're
keeps
a kid.
It keeps going when it keeps being created when it is viewed.
I mean, we've talked before about how I read Maurice Sendak's In the Night Kitchen when I was a kid, and reread it as an adult, and I was like, oh my gosh, this thing's only a few pages long and there's not much there. Like when I was a kid, I imagined this whole world of stuff happening within that story that wasn't there. So when you're a kid, you really are collaborating with the story.
For sure.
Yeah.
And then as an adult, you realize the tragic backstory of that book.
Yes.
That you never would have got as a child.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so these are fandom questions.
Okay.
What's the strangest or funniest story you have about meeting fans / seeing fan work online?
That's weird because, I hardly ever meet fans.
You keep to yourself.
And, also like someone asked me about fan mail once, and I was like, I think I've gotten 2 pieces of fan mail in my life.
Well, we get DMs on Instagram.
Yeah.
Those count.
Yeah, no, that's true. But
they don't come in big sacks.
But people used to actually physically mail stuff like to the Disney Channel or ABC or whatever, but it didn't go to us. Like I never saw those things. And actually one of the 2 pieces of mail I got was someone sent me a Hellfire and Brimstone religious comic. Apparently they thought I needed help.
Okay.
So that doesn't really count as fan
What
mail.
show were you making at the time?
That was Earthworm Jim.
Oh, well, obviously.
Yeah.
I could see that.
It was I don't know. Do you know the Jack Chick comics?
No.
From like the 50s and 60s?
I feel like you told me about it.
It was one of those.
Oh, my.
Yeah. It was hilarious. But,
Okay.
so I don't have that many interactions. I have more interactions with Dave the Barbarian fans because Candie has a Dave the Barbarian tattoo, and people will see that and be like, oh my God, Dave the Barbarian. So I wind up having interactions with people like that sometimes. And probably the strangest is when people cry. So I don't know how to react to that.
Yeah. But that's sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. Where were we? We were in a
Sedeka in the Burbank Mall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone was very excited.
Yes.
So.
And that's sweet.
Yeah. But I mean, and people are always super nice, and it's really cool. It's cool to meet people who like the thing that you did.
I've never had anyone go, like, they see my tattoo and be like, that show sucked.
No. Nope.
That would, I don't know how I would react to that. Like, okay.
I feel like it's just like when people see my mohawk, I'm sure there are people who don't like it, but they tend to keep it to themselves.
Yeah.
I only hear positive things.
Yeah. Well, you're also a big, intimidating looking guy.
I think that's why I only hear positive things.
Okay. I remember Tina's house appearing in the opening theme of a Dave the Barbarian episode. I'd like to know all about this choice.
I don't remember doing that, but it is definitely something I would have done. So we just had a running thing on Dave the Barbarian where the castle would collapse at the end and there'd be something behind it. And at some point, it was like every now and then it'd be like, okay, we got to come up with like 5 of these. So what are we going to do? Big lobster, an eyeball, Tino's house. Like you would just like throw out stuff. And so there's some in there that it was like, I kind of wish we'd spent 5 more minutes. But I love that one. I don't remember doing it, but that's great. I'm glad we did it. I'm glad they let us do it.
Excellent. I made a weird inside joke that Dave the Barbarian happens to be a show that exists within Bahia Bay. So if we go by this logic, then would that mean that at least one of the Weekenders have seen this show?
I wish I had known about Dave the Barbarian when we were making the Weekenders, so I could have hinted around about it.
Yeah.
Because definitely it seems like Tino would have been a fan of that show.
Yeah, but Dave the Barbarian didn't even exist in your head yet at that point, did it?
No, not until, I think, completely after we were done with Weekenders.
Mhm.
So.
But yeah, if it happens to be a show that exists within Bahia Bay, then they would have watched it.
Yep.
Okay. How do you feel about your show ending up on TV Tropes list of vindicated by history for Nikola Tesla?
So I had to look this up. TV Tropes has a whole long list of vindicated by history shows, and they're shows that like people didn't really care for when they were first on, and then later it was like, oh my gosh, that show was great, and we didn't know it. Like The Critic was not huge when it came out, and then later people liked it. Futurama people liked more after a couple of years. The weird thing is that, so I looked through this list, and Weekenders isn't on it. So then I did a more specific Google of the subject, and the listings on TV Tropes for the Weekenders include one saying that it is a rare example of in-universe vindicated by history. Because within the show, they talk about Nikola Tesla and how he invented radio, and the credit was mistakenly given to Marconi, and like Tish kind of goes on a rant about like how amazing Tesla was at a time when like no one was talking about Tesla at that time. He was not a well-remembered public figure. It just like people had sort of forgotten him.
He didn't have good publicity like Edison.
People knew about Tesla coils, and that was it. So it was like a few years after that, with the internet growing to greater prominence, like he became a big thing on the internet, and people talked about him, where people found out more about him, and unfortunately named a car brand after him. But like at the time, so the show was like vindicated by history in the sense that it was trying to vindicate a character from history within the show, and then that actual person became vindicated outside the show in reality. So I thought that was kind of neat. But I had read a lot about Tesla, and I was really kind of fascinated by Tesla, and so and just the fact that Marconi had been credited for inventing radio. Nothing against Marconi, but like Tesla had demonstrated it like, I don't know, 30 years before or something like that. It always sort of galled me. So I put it in the show.
I'm sure that kind of thing happens a lot.
Yeah.
Or at least sometimes.
Yes.
Okay, on the show's future, I'd love to see a Where Are They Now special of what the gang is up to 10 years from now. Does Carver ever become a shoe designer? What kind of scientific discoveries did Tish make? How many sports trophies does Lore have? Any possibility that could become a reality? There should be a show where Carver is working for John Fluevog.
Oh my God, that would be his dream.
Yeah.
I like to think that Carver did become a shoe designer, or at least a designer of some sort, because that seemed like his destiny. And I always like to think that Tish was... I went to high school with someone who took second place in the statewide science fair for discovering, if I remember correctly, and I may not, for discovering why limpets are sometimes different colors, which was a...
Jesus, Klaus.
Klaus is making some weird noises here. Which was, you know...
What are limpets?
Limpets are little shellfish that attach to rocks and stuff.
Like periwinkles?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was just something that, like, nobody knew, and she figured this out in high school. But then, I think that same year, someone discovered, like, the cause of the neurofibromatosis, the disease the elephant man probably had. So it was, like, it was a big year for the science fair. But I like to think that Tish would be one of those kids who would make some massive discovery in high school and go on to scientific acclaim.
And what about Lore?
I don't know. What would Lore wind up doing?
Would she be an athlete, or would it be a hobby for her?
I don't know. I think I don't see her growing up to be an athlete because she wasn't pursuing like one specific thing.
She just was sporty.
So many people who become professional athletes or Olympian athletes, like they're deep into that thing by the time they're 12.
Right. But into one thing.
Yeah, into one thing. But I don't know. Maybe she's a sportscaster.
Mm-hmm.
She'd be good at that.
Sure.
And Tino, I don't know. Tino's doing this. This is what Tino's doing. Tino's doing a podcast about a cartoon he came up with.
Okay. Any possibility that could become a reality?
Oh, I don't know.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Disney was experimenting with feature film versions of its One Saturday Morning shows in this era, Recess and Teacher's Pet. Was there any framework for a Weekenders feature, such as exploring summer vacation, the longest weekend of all?
I don't think we ever worked on a feature idea, but that's great.
That would be fun.
Yeah, this summer would be. And then, of course, eventually Phineas and Ferb sort of did that, the summer thing.
Did they?
A lot. But yeah, that would have been great.
If you had more time and were allowed to make more episodes, what else would you have done for the show?
So this is going to be probably a frustrating answer because we got picked up for 5 additional episodes at the end of everything. And we at least plotted out those episodes. I don't remember if we wrote scripts, but we may have actually written scripts. And then they were like, you know what, never mind. So we never got to make those episodes. So we definitely had at least 5 more stories we were prepared to tell, and I don't remember what any of them were. So,
and there's probably no copy of them out there.
No, not that I know of. So it was weird because at that time there were a bunch of Disney productions that got canceled sort of midstream. And I was like, we were sort of the first one in that we got this tentative pickup and then it was yanked away. And then I think they canceled like the Atlantis series when it was already in production. And there were 1 or 2 other things. So we were the first. We were the first to get killed.
Woo!
Woohoo!
What would the Weekenders be up to in 2025?
That's a great question. If we were continuing the show now and we did a new version, I would have to figure all that stuff out, but we haven't figured it out.
Yeah, and how old would they be now?
I think like 37.
So are viewers, like kids today, are they going to want to watch a show about 37-year-olds?
I think they would be tangential characters, and it would be
probably
about
their kids.
Yeah.
A sequel series or a reboot is probably unfeasible for now. I can understand that. However, what are the possibilities of the show getting merchandise, such as toys, plushies, video games, comics, and storybooks? Like little golden books, similar to what Avatar: The Last Airbender has recently done. I don't know. Merchandising is the dream. But
I would say the possibility is extremely low.
Because unless there's a big demand for it, nobody's going to spend millions to manufacture anything. So that feels like nil.
Yeah.
Would there ever be a reboot of the show? It's one of my favorite cartoons.
I would love for there to be a reboot.
I grew up with this show since the Toon Disney days. Will there ever be a feature-length film based on the series? I've been waiting years for this, and it never came true. I think we answered that already.
I think we would love for there to be one, but it doesn't seem likely.
Yeah, no, there has to be a big demand Okay.
Oh, and that was the number one question that people asked that isn't on this list was, is it ever going to be, is Weekenders ever going to be on Disney Plus? And the answer is we don't know.
They don't.
But they haven't put it up yet, which.
But like it could appear one day and we'd be like, oh, there it is. They don't tell you ahead of time.
No, they do not. It could be on there right now.
And we wouldn't know.
Yeah, because I haven't checked.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. While this is probably not going to get a clear answer unless it's just a straight up no, would you ever consider bringing this series back? Either them set in high school or young adults. Sure.
Yeah, we would love to.
If not a revival, would you ever consider a special about Where Are They Now? See, the thing is, it takes millions of dollars to make a show we don't have that,
Yep.
so we can only do what the studios will finance.
Yeah.
And so if it's not in demand, they're not going to give you the money to do that.
We could do a self-published comic book
with
called
stick figures.
Called the Sneakenders and change all their names and just tell everyone, you know what this really is. But, yeah.
Okay. The characters would be in their 30s today. Where do you see each of them ending up? I always saw Tino and Tish ending up married, but facing financial challenges as Tino tries to support Tish in a more artistic career like theater acting. That's very specific. They're happy, but always behind on bills.
I can definitely picture that. I never imagined any of the four main characters winding up together.
Mm-hmm.
That just was not something I saw happening. But I mean, I can totally see this as a storyline.
Sure.
That totally makes sense.
What would Tina, Laura, Carver, and Tish's lives like be now if they were adults?
It says, what would their lives be like if they were adults? I'm picturing what would it be like if they were adults in middle school? What would it be like if they were undercover, if it was like 21 Jump Street?
Oh, no.
We've sort of answered that already, I think. But I think they would all be very happy.
Yeah.
Let's say that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was a lot of questions.
Yes.
We made it through. I think, I don't know. We answered everything, or I answered everything as best I could. But again, 25 years ago.
How do you feel?
I feel like I've been sitting for too long.
No, how do you feel about the... I mean, I think it's really nice that people still care about the show.
Yeah. No, I love that people, that the show, the show meant a lot to me, and I love that it means something to other people.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the only reason to do this, is because, I've said it before. I think I've said it before on this podcast. Like, no matter how bad something is, it's someone's favorite show.
Right.
Or movie or
but
book.
You're not calling the Weekenders.
I'm not calling it bad, but there's always a reason to make a show, and the reason isn't necessarily for it to be good. The reason is for it to be good for someone.
Right.
Like for it to mean something to someone. So, if I can do something that means something to even one person, then that's not enough people. But if it means something to a whole bunch of people, that's that's why we're doing this,
mm-hmm.
and I love that.
I'm doing it for the money. So if anyone has any follow-up questions,
mm-hmm.
The best place to reach us is on Instagram, Doug and Candie Langdale, with underscores between the words. My name is spelled with an IE at the end.
Yes.
Doug and Candie Langdale, Instagram, best way to get a hold of us.
Yeah. So let us know, and hopefully we've answered questions to people's satisfaction.
I hope so.
Alrighty.
All right. Well,
thank you, everyone.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you again to Nadia Russo for putting all these questions together.
Yes, and for having the blog.
Yes.
On Tumblr.
Yes.
So she gives the Weekenders a home out there on the internet.
It's very nice.
And that is nice.
Yeah.
All righty.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye.